Thank you much. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. So, fingerstyle guitar, as opposed to what? Foot style? What do we always play the guitar with our fingers. All it really means is that we don't play with picks or with flat picks. You know what a flat pick is, right? That's a regular pick like that. That's a flat pick. Some so-called fingerstyle guitarists will play with a thumb pick, that kind of pick that attaches to their thumb. So really, what it comes down to is a fingerstyle guitarist, we play sort of in the way that classical guitarists always played. When I was a boy and I first started to take guitar lessons, my mom would call me in very urgently. She had Channel 13 on, and here was Andre Segovia teaching a master class. Do you guys know that name, Andre Segovia? He was, you know, really the father of the modern classical guitar, and he was quite something. They called him the maestro. So I got an early idea about this. And then there were people who played acoustic guitars and finger picked. You know about finger picking, right? So instead of just strumming the guitar, they held the chord down with their left hand, but with the right hand you're picking the notes out. And it creates a little more interest. It's kind of a counterpoint. I remember when I first heard that as a young person, it really caught my ear. Ooh, to me it sounded complicated and mysterious. I couldn't understand what was going on, so I got very interested in that. Now, by the time we fast forward to the modern idea of the fingerstyle guitar, is just like a classical guitarist, we're playing all the parts of the song. So as I play for you, you'll hear, hopefully you'll hear the melodies. Hope you recognize some melodies in that little medley I just played. But you'll also hear me play accompaniment in the form of chords and bass lines that run along. And sometimes it's, the lines are very independent. So I'd like to play one for you now from the group that interested me in playing the guitar, from the Beatles. Because, you know, I got to stay up late. I was in my pajamas, I had to brush my teeth ahead of time, and I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, that's what I want to do. So here's a Beatles song, but listen to how the one guitar is playing all the parts of the band. you all so much. Beatles music stays with me always. Always love it. Always want to play it. And it's a blessing. Blessing to still have it. I don't know if you got a chance to see, there's that wonderful program right now, Get Back, on the Beatles. And they actually have, it's too long. They should have edited this down, but they have about 6 hours of the Beatles rehearsing and preparing for their final concert. And they're just being silly and goofing around with one another. If you enjoy the Beatles, it's certainly worth looking at a few minutes of it. Get Back, fun stuff. Well, one of the things about the guitar is that it really grows out of Spanish culture, doesn't it? And, you know, actually, an interesting thing, you know, we think of the guitar, and especially the style of guitar that I play, it's a Spanish guitar. We definitely think of Spain and all the music that comes out of there, but, you know, it goes back a little before that. The Moors who invaded Spain, right? And we know that there's a lot of Moorish architecture in Spain, you know, those beautiful white buildings on the coast. The Moors brought the oud to Europe. You know that instrument, the oud, it's shaped like a, what do you call this shape here? I'm making it, you know, it's a little oval, but it's long. It's a string instrument with a neck like a guitar, but it has no frets. And that guitar is that instrument, I should say, is the direct ancestor of the lute. And the lute is essentially an ancient guitar. You know, the modern guitar is based on the lute. We hear lute music. Bach wrote a lot for the lute, for example. But then the guitar, the modern guitars, it gets rooted in Spain. You know, wow, the Spaniards go crazy with it. And we have all that flamenco music, and the classical guitar, you know, grows very much out of the Spanish tradition. I've been entranced with Latin music, you know, music from that area, and especially to me, the neighbor of Spain, of course, being Portugal, and then Portugal coming to the New World with Brazil. Oh boy, I'm a nut for Brazilian music. And, you know, so I'm going to play a few Brazilian pieces for you this afternoon. But let me start off with one right now that is the one that made the whole world aware of Brazil and Rio de Janeiro. You know, the Brazilians always played this type of guitar that I'm playing now, a nylon string. Americans call it a classical guitar. In Brazil, it's called the violão, spelled like viola. Olha que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça. Moço dourado de cor. Fica mais lindo por causa do amor. Porque estou tão sozinho. Porque é tudo tão triste. A beleza que existe, a beleza que não assumia, que também passa sozinha. Ah, se ela soubesse, se quando ela passa, o mundo sorrindo, sente de graça, que fica mais lindo por causa do amor. so sadly. How can I tell her I love her? Yes, I would give my heart gladly. But each day as she walks from the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at me. Ah, se ela é sobeça, se quando la passa, o mundo sorrindo, se enche de graça, que fica mais lindo por causa do amor. Por causa do amor. I was turning back to look to see if she was turning right to look. Okay, I got one person who said Jobim. So I hope you all recognize that. I disguised it a little by singing it in Portuguese for you. And you know, if you go to the original record, the single, the 45 they released here, was only in English with Astrid Gilberto singing. But if you go to the album, it starts off with João Gilberto singing those lyrics in Portuguese, and then she sings the English version. And the Portuguese lyrics are much more, as Brazilian songs will tend to be, they're more philosophical, and they're talking about the nature of beauty and what it is to muse on this thing, and they talk about what it is to be alone. But the song was never about, oh, I'm trying to catch her eye and she won't look at me. That's not at all the intention in Brazilian Portuguese. The intention is, this thing of beauty that changes the way we look at the world. And it was a real girl. And Jobim and his buddy Vinicius, who wrote the lyrics, would sit in this bar. I've been to the bar. It's just off Ipanema Beach. It's not a fancy place, just an ordinary bar where guys would go to have a beer on a hot summer afternoon. And they would see this lovely girl walking from the beach each day. And it inspired them for the song. And if you go there, they changed the name of it. It's now called the Garota de Ipanema Bar, which means the girl from Ipanema Bar. And you can see where they wrote the lyrics on the back of a placemat. Yeah, it's really cute. And the woman now, who's older, is she ran a successful cosmetics business for many years. So some very fun history all around that song. Brazilian music, again, one of my all-time favorites. And we just heard Bossa Nova, which meant new wave. That's what they called it in the 60s. And what they did, and the reason it was called new wave, is we took samba, which is the basic rhythm of all Brazilian music, and we combined it with jazzy chords and presented it with guitar and a soft voice. Because regular samba music, you know, if you go, I was in Brazil for the Carnival, wow, there's 300 drummers marching down the street. It's loud and, you know, bombastic. So the new wave was, we're quiet and cool, because Rio was very cosmopolitan in the 60s. But if I go back, say, to around the 1930s, the music that was popular in Brazil has its roots much more in Europe, and that music was called choro, or chorinho. Well, chorinho is really what you call a choro song, like a little choro. Choro is the style. So let me play for you now the most famous choro song, which I think many of you will recognize. The name of it is Chico Chico no Fuba, but everyone in America calls it Tico Tico. See if you know this one. Thank you. You guys are so warm. So I made a little left on you. I think you probably saw that. I should have warned you to fasten your seatbelts. But we went right from Brazil in the 1930s to California. I guess that was still the 1970s. About 79, the Eagles came out with that song, very much with a Spanish influence. So I thought there was a connection there. But I'm also demonstrating for you one of the important things about what we'll learn today is that fingerstyle guitar is a technique of playing the guitar, not a style of music, right? Because so far we've heard Great American Songbook, we've heard Beatles, so we heard some rock and roll, we heard Brazilian, we heard Bossa Nova, we just heard choro, and we just heard classic rock. So we're covering a lot of styles here, and that's the idea. Fingerstyle guitar, again, is not a musical style, but it's an approach to the instrument that allows us to play different styles. And this suits me very much because I have a short attention span. I don't want to just focus on one thing, I play a lot of things. The thing that I've left out of the discussion so far, which I'd like to bring in now, is a terrible four-letter word. Be careful, don't let your children hear. The word is jazz. Got to be careful about jazz, because it's the devil's music. It could take us down into the swamp. I got very, very interested in jazz. And in fact, right here in Wayne, New Jersey, I studied at William Patterson College. And we had such great professors in those days. Thad Jones and Mel Lewis, who had the last great big band going, taught there. And Rufus Reed, the great bassist, was teaching there. I got to study guitar with Harry Leahy and Joe Cinderella and a couple of great classical guitarists as well. And so there's always jazz in my music, whether I'm playing a song that you think of as jazz or not, because I improvise all the time. And that's what jazz really is. It's just about improvising. If we really had to define jazz, it's music that's based on improvising. Of course, jazz, we think of the real popular jazz, happens in the 30s and the 40s, and a little bit before that. Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Miles Davis, and then it's not so popular. I mean, I know all the other names. Do you know those names like John Coltrane and Chick Corea and people like that? If you're a music fan, you know those names. But, in the 40s, when my parents were growing up, that was popular music, wasn't it? And people danced to it. My father tells me that when he went to a school dance, they grew up in Brooklyn, my folks, they'd have a big band playing swing music at one end of the auditorium, and at the other end, there'd be a mambo band. And so, jazz. So let's talk a little bit more about jazz, because so much of what we think of as jazz is the way jazz musicians interpreted the Great American Songbook. Do we all know the Great American Songbook? That's an American heritage, the Great American Songbook. It's really the music, starts in the 20s and goes, into the 60s. Henry Mancini, I think, was still the Great American Songbook, Johnny Mandel, and all those great artists in the middle, Irving Berlin and Cole Porter and the Gershwins and Jerome Kern and, Hammerstein and so many other great musicians. Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and Ella Fitzgerald and so many of the great singers, all those movies with Fred Astaire, those songs were the Great American Songbook. Jazz musicians took them and they made them into their own. So, by the way, I want to tell you along these lines, I did a record of Great American Songbook recently because so many of the audiences that I play for and so many of the young people that I teach, I have 3 of my students from Ramapo College here. I'm very delighted that they came out. And I would sit with these students, and these are music students. These are kids who are interested in music, And after a while, we'd say, well, what should we work on? I said, well, have we done a standard? And sometimes I'd get, yeah, we did a Beatles song. Well, okay, that's a certain kind of a standard, but that's not what I meant. I meant something from the Great American Songbook. And I'd get these blank expressions, no idea what the Great American Songbook was. So I took it upon myself to record some of those songs. But look what's going on now. Did you see Lady Gaga on the Grammys with Tony Bennett? you know, he's a treasure, my goodness. And here's a very, very contemporary artist who's a great musician, and she's paying tribute and singing those songs with him. So let's do a Great American Songbook song here. It wasn't jazz when Judy Garland sang it, really, was it? Well, I'm hardly the first to play this jazzy, but Thank you so much. So you can see that I played the song, you'll recognize the melody, but I changed a lot of things. I adjusted the harmony to my way of thinking of the harmony. I changed the rhythm on both of those songs too. And this is what jazz was about from the beginning, the interpretation of the musician. The musician and the performance suddenly step forward and become equal to the composition, which is interesting. But before that, if we look at classical music, and even to this day, in classical music, the composition is definitely key, it's king. And if you go to the symphony and you hear a piece that well, there are differences. This conductor played it a little bit slower, and that section he played a little louder, and this section she played a little softer, but it doesn't change very much, does it? Classical music is pretty much, we're trying to honor what Beethoven or Bach or whomever wrote down. But jazz musicians don't feel that way. We're taking liberties, and that's the art of it. And that's the fun of it too, because for someone like me, now I'm playing songs that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old sometimes. Or come to think of it, some of them are quite a bit older than that. And I'm hoping that that song is in your ears enough that you can kind of take the trip with me. Where am I going to go with this song? And that becomes the interest of it, And many of the great jazz musicians, if you look at Miles Davis, he played music. He even did a recording from Oklahoma. He did Surrey with a Fringe on Top, which is kind of a silly song, but he played jazz on it. And John Coltrane made a great recording of My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music. He changed it quite a bit from the way they did it in The Sound of Music. But that way, we have a little common ground. Here's an idea. It's sort of the same concept as when a painter paints an object that's familiar, but then changes it. When you see those Picasso paintings that, it might be the face of a woman, or that one, there's a great one, the guitarist, and that guy's bent over the guitar. And, he's changed it. If we look at it literally, it's no longer a face, right? He's got cubes and squares and everything. But we're able to recognize that there's a face there, and then we have to deal with the artist and the interpretation. And the same thing is happening in music here. Okay, so I brought up Duke Ellington. I'm going to play a Duke Ellington song. And I have a cute story to go with this. I once got contracted to play a party in New York City, and it was, at someone's home. And I went there and I was playing for folks right in the living room, just a little intimate party. And someone said to me, can you play any Duke Ellington? I said, sure. And I launched into this song and I played it for him. And when I took a break, a few minutes later, he introduced me to his date. He said, I'd like you to meet Mercedes Ellington. And there was Duke Ellington's granddaughter. I said, wow, I'm glad you told me after I played this song. Thank you kindly. We talked a bit about the classical guitar, which is really, to my way of thinking, the father of fingerstyle guitar. And in fact, a very interesting thing is happening now. A lot of the young classical guitarists are recording popular songs in fingerstyle and starting to cross over. So I haven't prepared a classical piece, a strict classical piece, but here's a piece by the classical guitarist John Williams, one of the great living classical guitarists, and he recorded it for the movie The Deer Hunter. It was the theme for the movie The Deer Hunter. It's called the Cavatina. I get requested this a great deal, and it's very much in the classical guitar style. So I hope you enjoy it. I knew Les Paul a little bit. I used to go by and sit in at the club, and so I had to learn Les Paul's song, How High the Moon. Thank you kindly. I want to take a moment, too, to thank Deborah and everyone here at the Wayne Public Library for having me. And especially thank you because during lockdown in the past couple of years, and they didn't cancel this, and we did it on Zoom. And I can tell you, I really appreciate that we kept that going. That meant a lot to me. I'm going to play you one by a modern American composer that, if they still called it the Great American Songbook, he'd be there. It's Jimmy Webb, who wrote all those great hits for Glenn Campbell. I love Glenn Campbell. I watched that show when I was a kid. It was corny, but boy, he was a great musician. This is one of his hits from Jimmy Webb, the Wichita Lineman. Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to, in every show I play, do at least one song from the 21st century. So I don't think I've done one yet, so I'm going to close the show with one from the 21st century. It's kind of a silly pop song, but it came to me recently that this is something, and now I'm saying this out loud, and I'm going, well, maybe this isn't the 21st century. Can't remember, but Ricky Martin had a big hit with this silly song. I think it just lies beautifully on the guitar. I thank you again. Thank you kindly. If you'd like to take the music home, but you don't like the idea of a guitar player sleeping on your couch, I do have CDs. And please, if you have any interest, give me your email address and I can keep you posted on engagements in the future. Thanks.